and a more full stack developer. But then, what the hell does full stack mean?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, right? Because I mean,
Yeah,
from a full stack developer perspective, um, you almost mix in several roles in a lot of cases because it's like you're baking a cake, right? And you add a little bit of what a DBA used to do. You add some of that SRE capability. You add some DevOps. You add some front end. You add some of the glue from that kind of like middleware API type of focus. It's a bit of everything.
and it starts being funny when you change the size of the company, because if you're in a startup with 4 developers, then you're full stack, and if you're in a massive company, then the scope is a bit different. I mean, there's no reason why SEs couldn't DevRel. No
Yeah.
reason at all. We shouldn't be doing DevRel gatekeeping and say this is just a DevRel thing. It shouldn't be. And that's also why I'm saying that maybe some of those job or terms will disappear once everybody's developer friendly and understand how developer works. And there's no reason why it should just be us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Hacking Open Source Business podcast. I am your host, the HOSS. That's me, Matt Yonkovit. And today I'm joined by Laurent Doguin. Laurent, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing very well, thank you.
All right. Now, Laurent, you are the Director of Developer Relations and Strategy at Couchbase.
Yeah, such a big name.
That is a big name. So
Yeah.
I am always curious when I see strategy in the title. What does strategy mean for your role?
This is weird. Like, this could be anything. We're in DevRel, right? So this could be content strategy, which there are people that are content strategists, and that's a full-time job. There's could be probably other things. What it means for me is it's developer strategy at Couchbase globally. And he started out like this about a year ago, and there's some specific reason for that. The main one being Couchbase now is all about developer, which was not necessarily the case 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or how old are we? 12 years ago. Because it started out as a database targeted towards architects and DBAs and ops and sysadmin and all, and usual suspects of people using DBAs. Little history, maybe, if you don't mind. Couchbase started out in 2011 as the merge, some people would say fork, of CouchDB and Membase. So it's nothing to do with CouchDB anymore. You had two companies, basically one at the tech, one at the sales. They've merged and created Couchbase. That was in 2011. Couchbase is a document store. You can store stuff. And of course, you can do SQL because we're in 2023 and now everybody does SQL, even if no one wanted to do SQL 10 years ago, because we learn. And so Couchbase for a very long time was all about DBAs and architects and sysadmins. And I actually started working at Couchbase in 2014. And in 2017, as a developer advocate, in 2017, I went to my CTO and said, I'm not talking to any developer, something's wrong. What's going on? And at the time, the answer was, we're a database company. You want to be a PM? Come be a PM. And I was like, not really. I'm gonna join my friend that are building a platform as a service. It's fine. It's more developer friendly. It's more developer. That's what I want to do. So I left. And then about a year ago, I met my former colleagues at conferences that said, like, dude, it's all about developer. Now you have to talk to the new CMO. There's a new sheriff in town. There's a new VP of engineering. It's all about developers. I was like, well, I'm unemployed. Happily, I'm brewing beer. I could be happy with a new job and the money that comes with tech job instead of the money that comes with a beer job. So I was like, sure, let's chat. And that's why I rejoined Couchbase, because John Crasher, our CMO, convinced me that it was all about developers now, but we don't know what to do. And I was the guy that was screaming 5 or 6 years before that, just like, why are we not talking to developers? That should be our main job. And so now it's my job to turn the company into a more developer-friendly organization. It's not my sole job, and I'm not the only one that has to do that. But it falls on me, and that's good. I think DevRel is first and foremost a culture issue. And I'm going to start by saying the somewhat weird thing that DevRel, I think, is going to disappear one day, because as a culture, not the DevRel jobs, don't developer advocates evangelists, we still need that, but I think that people will learn to talk to developers because developers are really just Gen Zs before Gen Zs, which is the other weird thing. Like we our whole life has been created by the search box. That's Gen Z life. Like anything you want, go on Google or Spotify or whatever, or Stack Overflow, and in 2 seconds you have your answer. And as people working in tech, we had access to that before Gen Zs. We're not born with this, but we embrace that before everybody else. So we are a little specific target to market to, because of course we can be marketed to, just like Gen Z. And in a sense, that's what DevRel is. We need to learn how to talk to these people, and then one day, I think everybody will have the culture and the known to actually talk to or market to us weird people that have been born with a 2 second search box for anything, and it's going to get so worse with AI and all those things.
Wow. Yes.
I'm just speaking too much. Yeah.
No. And here's the thing. There's like 12 different items that I want to unpack in what you just said. Okay. There's so much to talk there. So let's start though with the concept of talking specifically to developers, because this is an interesting concept, because everyone that I talk to is all in on talking to developers. And quite honestly, the mindset is, if you convince the developers, you'll get the grassroots movement for people to adopt your technology, especially if it's open source to start with. They'll adopt it for free, and then all of a sudden their bosses will eventually have to pay or something for it. I mean, it's kind of that thought process where it's like the more adoption you can get with the developers, the easier it is for them to purchase something eventually. Because let's be honest, we all work for companies that are selling something. I mean, that's
the thing. Like if this. Some DevRel say, no, I don't want to talk with sales because it's not what we do. And I said, well, I mean, someone's paying your salary, right? So that's all what you do.
Yeah, and it really is that. And there is a divide between those. But what's interesting is I have a deep background in the database space, just like you. It's difficult sometimes to do that transition from infrastructure to developers, right? Because from an infrastructure standpoint, we've been bombarded with cloud offerings and things where it's like, don't think about the database, don't think about your data, don't think about the infrastructure. Serverless, yes. How do you view that? And have you had that challenge where, as you go in and talk, what sort of stories have you found that resonate from an infrastructure or database standpoint with developers? Where have you seen success, and maybe where have you seen some difficulties?
There's so much things to say about this. So between my two Couchbase jobs, I went to Clever Cloud Platform as a service. This is an infrastructure product completely dedicated to developers and removing like the people I used to talk to from the equation, basically. Except DBAs, one could argue that DBAs still provide business value more than infrastructure value, because if you want to be a good DBA, you have to know the business of the company. So maybe not DBAs, but like most sysadmin, SRE. Platform developers now, because if you're a platform developer, it means you're building your own platform, which is what we're doing, which is what Heroku's been doing for years. So I sort of remove those people from the equation, or let's say give them back some time to think about other stuff to provide value and not infrastructure. And the problem with databases is that for a long time we were not necessarily infrastructure, but now it's completely infrastructured. As a verb, we've been infrastructured. We've disappeared from people's radar because they expect to use higher level services. And so that's where we want to go. That's where everybody's going. If you, that's very interesting actually. If you look at MongoDB's strategy right now, they have the same messaging that I used to have in the platform as a service world. It's basically from ID to production. And it's not even talking about database anymore. It's a developer platform.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's very good reason for that. The longer you are in the market, and you survive in the market, everybody survives in the market, and then you have this platformization thing, everybody ends up having the same set of features, and then you need to go always higher level, because that's what developer wants. They want to go higher level of abstraction, they want to have more things automated, because they don't want to care about the infrastructure. And we are in this interesting crossroad with cloud and databases where, what are you? Are you infrastructure? Are you business value provider? What it is that we're doing? And it depends on the company, depends on the developers. It's so complicated. And it's fun as well. I enjoy that. And one other thing that we could put in that equation, it's about open source and about locking people in. The former way of locking people was license, because everybody was hosting things themselves anyway. And because of the cloud and because of certain cloud providers, which shall not be named, there's been some changes in licenses in the database world. And then, and the reason for that is that the new way of locking people in is, and basically went open source software, API and services, cloud. If you're cloud, you're locked in the cloud and you use the thing in the cloud. And at the same time, no one's going to argue about that because it's just infrastructure now. It's not providing any value anymore. So you are probably locked into your electricity provider and you never think about it. And it's probably going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of things to unpack as well in there. But yeah, database and cloud are interesting. I'm not sure if I answered your question correctly, but that's
Well,
where I went. I digress too much.
no, it's cool because I think again there is tons of interesting topics in there. When you talk about that cloud lock-in, I've seen that over and over again as well, where you do get in and it's the old Eagles song, the Hotel California, you could check in but you can never leave. And that happens especially because as we've moved away from understanding the infrastructure standpoint, a lot of those skill sets are lost in organizations. So they don't have the skills to necessarily even spin up or the desire or the setup to manage that large infrastructure anymore.
I think that's an interesting point is that it's at the same time you see those skills disappear because it's the result of a digital transformation. The digital transformation is getting rid of all the stuff that you internalized before and that you don't need to because now the market is mature enough so you don't have to care and so you don't have those resources anymore internally because you've been successful at your digital transformation. I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah. So you're the cost of your success, right? So you gain some and then others. And I mean, I do it. I'm doing a talk in a few months on a problem that we had with our cloud provider. And it was, we run a database as a service, or have a database as a service provider for one of our products. And we had this third-party app that we set up, and it just went through and it indexed or looked for the data and tried to summarize and do some things. And we found 1 month it accidentally went against this table it shouldn't have. And the queries that it ran racked up like a $20,000 bill for like one query, right? Because and it was not intentional. We didn't even need it to do it. But how this was set up was, the tool that we used automatically went to the serverless database. It went through, it checked all the data, it tried to summarize, what was in there, build some catalog on, the different values. And because it was doing that on a regular basis to refresh it on this one table, destroyed the cost.
Yeah, that's tough. FinOps is a thing as well that you have to talk about in 2023.
Yeah.
And serverless, threshold effect, it's managed, but then you don't know what's going to happen. It's hard.
Yeah. So back to the developer topic. One of the things that I've noticed in this, and I don't know if you've seen this, especially when I talk with folks in like DevOps or developer relations, DevRel space, is I hear a lot of people, we just want developers, but they don't understand that not all developers are created equal, right? So there are multiple types of developers. A front-end developer is very different than a full-stack developer, very different than a DevOps engineer or a back-end developer, right? Different levels of developers. And I think that the thought process, especially depending on where DevRel fits in an organization, tends to fall in, get me all the developers versus get me the right segment of developers. And so for you, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? And how have you kind of refined which developers are the most interesting for you at Couchbase?
It's interesting. So we do have personas, but then the first thing I want to say is that setting a database is such a different thing than setting a SaaS. Because it's such a sticky choice when people choose a database that it doesn't matter. Like I understand the bottom top approach that in theory gives you grassroots adoption, and then you take the middle layer in a sandwich with the C level because your sales go and talk to ideally to the C level, and then you take the middle management layer that doesn't like change. That's usually what happens. I'm almost a middle manager as well, so not going to say too much bad thing about this. So yeah, it's you can talk to every developer if you have a database for sure. But we want to. We have four different personas that we are refining as we go. But we started with those four. We used to have basically architects and sysadmin DBAs, with a good old target basically, and then developers. What do we do? As everybody uses a database? Not really. I mean, it depends because the reason we've made those personas is not necessarily for their rates, for the rest of the company. It's for marketing mostly. How do you nurture your leads? How do you select your leads? How do you qualify them? Those people. And there's so many different job titles in developers that your persona sort of have to engulf some of those. And so we kept our architects, C-level, people that have the money and the decision power. We kept that because we were a database, and those people still decide with that for that. Most databases might change when serverless becomes ubiquitous, stateful serverless. When every
Yeah.
database has some stateful serverless offer, it might diminish a bit, but we still talk to these people. We still talk to our ops and our DBAs because they are important users as well. But what has changed at Couchbase is we want to talk to more developers as well. It has changed because we went from being a pure software vendor to being a cloud provider, to being a database as a service provider. And so being a database as a service provider, ops and DBA somewhat become less important because you move the infrastructure part away, and then so if you run ops, well, it's managed already. I mean, of course, we don't do everything automatically, and people should not do all the things automatically because this can lead to terrible effects like an increase of your invoice or a domino effect. Because if you automate failover and provisioning, and then something doesn't work, you're gonna have some very weird activities on your cluster. So we still need ops and DBAs, maybe less, so they can do more interesting things. Like no one wants to manually do a backup thing because you remember the time when they had this list of this is the backup procedure, and you have to copy paste the thing, and we all know what happens when people copy paste things. It doesn't work, so you automate that. That's what I did at Clever Cloud Platform as a Service. That's what we do with Couchbase Capella. Give back brain, important time for people. So yeah, DBA still super important. We have this cool query workbench, and they can run explain on the SQL query just like any SQL database. DBA is still important. But thing is, that's just one very specific and less important part because it's going to be less ops, less DBA, more people that build the stuff, and so more backend developers, more mobile developer because we do have a mobile offering, and more full stack developer. And then, what the hell does full stack mean?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
from a full stack developer perspective, you almost mix in several roles in a lot of cases because it's like you're baking a cake, right? And you add a little bit of what a DBA used to do. You add some of that SRE capability. You add some DevOps. You add some front end. You add some of the glue from that kind of like middleware API type of focus. It's a bit of everything.
And it starts being funny when you change the size of the company because if you're in a startup with four developers, then you're full stack. And if you're in a massive company, then the scope is a bit different. So we chose those personas. Mobile is a bit of a different story. We have to have mobile developer and counter to mobile developer. They are very different from most others. They expect somewhat different things. Because we have Couchbase Mobile, which is like this offline synchronization, you have a database on your phone and it syncs to the cloud database. So people that build apps, basically. And then we want to talk about the people that build not mobile app, but everything else. Everything else, if you're a big company or a backend developer, you do all the middleware, you do all the microservices, you do all the, all that stuff. And then we decided that full stack was not necessarily about the number of stacks that people know and the different level, but more about training and when you do a bootcamp, people tell you, well, now you're a full stack developer. Or when you do any, what's the word, not training but like any school, any bootcamp, any certification, and any
Okay.
you end up having the full stack job because that's what people want to do now. Okay, fine, you're now junior or full stack developer and you know how to do everything. I mean, at least they've seen how to do most of the things. They're not necessarily expert in that, and that's fine. Our goal as developers is to stay at school for the rest of our developer career. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people saying I've seen a little bit of everything, and I know you still have to learn on the job, and that's fine. And we'll help you learn on that. So we're gonna have, because it's not there yet, but we want to have a very strong focus on education, on entry level education at Couchbase, just to take those full stack developers, and there's going to be more and more of those of them, and teach them this is how you do basic database stuff. This is how you build apps. This is how you build things. We really want to care about what people build, because again, as a database, we are this small brick, and it's going to be an even smaller brick because it's probably going to be abstracted by higher service value. Like if you get the success of Superbase and Firebase and all those backend as a service, all those application platform like Atlas is trying to do. I admit we're a little late on that, but we are really looking forward to doing things like this, because that's where the market goes, and this is where we need to go as well. And this is where developers go. Like I don't want to write glue anymore. I want to be efficient, and maybe that's where ChatGPT and AI will help us as well, be more efficient. I'm not expecting it to dramatically change the way we do things. I'm expecting it to be a huge productivity boost for all the boring tasks that we have to do.
And this is where it's interesting from a developer perspective. I think that it's more emphasis on making things easier and making things more collaborative with other technologies now, and more partnerships from a technical perspective. It's about, people don't think about necessarily just, choosing the database. They choose their application framework, and then does it have the right APIs? Is it easy
Yes.
to use with their database? If you're a React shop, how do you interact with React? If you're, Next.js, if you're, like whatever you are, you almost need to cover all of the boxes and decide. And there's so many different boxes you could have. Deciding is difficult.
It's all about stacks. Like that's what you said. People choose stack, and you have to enable them to choose your product in their favorite stack. So what happened in Couchbase, and one of the reasons I came back is that we rebooted DevRel on the marketing. Now the reason for that is that we had developer advocacy. They were reporting to product and engineering, and the DA team now is really focused on developer integration. Like most of their job is to make sure that Couchbase is usable in your favorite stack. So when is this going to be published? I'm assuming not today, but we should be announcing some cool integration tomorrow, which should be.
It might actually be published tomorrow, which is today. But anyways.
Right. And so well, go on Couchbase.com and look at the latest integration that we have. But we've been working on our ODM, our Mongoose equivalent. It's called Automan. We've been working on Spring Data. We've been working on other cloud integration like Netlify. It's already online. You can Google it. We'll get us tomorrow, I think. Well, today. They are working on this, and because it's so important, the DA team now is almost full-time doing this. And our CMO said, well, that's a perfect opportunity to restart DevRel on the marketing, which is where I came in.
Okay. So out of curiosity, now that you've worked with both marketing and engineering from a DevRel perspective, it's a debate in every company where...
Oh, no, there's no debate. Marketing has money. Go to marketing.
Okay.
It's easy.
Well, and I mean, but does that mean that from a DevRel perspective, you end up being more aligned with the business then, because you're under the marketing department? And less
well, I think you have to, and it goes back to what we said earlier. Is that you can expect to be that pure little thing that is for the. You're paid for that job, so whatever you do, you're in the business, and I don't think that. Yeah, if you think that people pay you just to be nice with people, I mean, the end game of being nice with people is growing the funnel of the company. Today's community is tomorrow's funnel. Yeah, that's like it is what it is, and so yes, you have to.
Well, in a lot of startups, this is what an interesting trend that I've started to see is before any marketing person's hired, a DevRel person's hired, right? It's almost like DevRel replacing marketing as a function early on.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of traps in there. I actually wrote an article about that. It's called DevRel Lie. It's on my blog post. I'll send you the link. There's different links that the different stages where they hire you, and they think, The first one is, we're a startup, you're a DevRel. You know how to do a little bit of everything. You're going to be one of the first employees because you can do a little bit of everything. And so you end up doing field marketing, you end up doing product, you end up doing everything. And like, if you're that good, just go and build your own company, honestly.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the reason why.
Well, and you mentioned that, I saw the talk you gave a couple years ago, DevRel is a lie.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
About that. Yes, I did do that, yeah.
You did. And that was, DevRel is a job. It's a jack of all trades, master of none. I remember that as the first lie that was told. And that's so true because it is something that, especially early on, it's like the expectation is go connect with developers and just grow this audience. And it's interesting because a lot of what you do, especially early on, but in any DevRel, it's dependent on the product being easy as well and accessible and integratable. There is this collaborative nature between all the different departments that needs to happen. And I think that's often overlooked, right? It's something that, it's like, just go get lots of developers interested. Well, if the technology isn't there or if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't matter how good your DevRel program is. It's just not going to get adoption or generate interest. I think it's missed sometimes.
I mean, if your developers cannot use your product, then what's the point of building relation with them? I agree. Yes, it makes complete sense. And it sort of ties back into how DevRel is DevRel. I'm in the DevRel team. There is a DA team and there is a community team at Couchbase. I've seen DevRel as this practice, this cultural thing. The DevRel team at Couchbase that reports on the marketing is mostly focused toward outreach. So we could say we are the evangelist team. I'm hiring for developer evangelists. That's what we do, because the DA team is in very strong ties with the product because of all the developer integration they work on. And then community also reports on the marketing. They have the budget, which is great because, swag and all that stuff. And they really work hand in hand with field marketing as well. So now it's not just there's the developer events and there's the sales events. Everything's the same, and that's actually quite cool. I don't remember why I was saying this, but anyway, this is how it's organized at Couchbase, and yeah.
Now, out of curiosity, what's that split between community and DevRel? Like, what's the functional split?
We are the technical people mostly. We do all the technical stuff. They care about the community. They give a home to the communities. Basically, my job is to give them more stuff to do. I'm pure outreach. The DA team makes sure that when people came in, they don't leave because the product is bad. And the community team makes sure that they have a place to stay and they take care of them. And they manage the ambassador program, they manage the meetup program, they manage all those things. That is, Discord and join our Discord, all that thing.
Yeah, that's very similar to how I've set that up in the past with, the evangelists, the community. But we've also had an OSPO where it's more on the code contribution side. So from an open source perspective, there's a little kind of something that I've also done. But I see that split. And a lot of times people mistake having an evangelist do the community side, which is that jack of all trades thing. And they're very separate skill sets. And sometimes for somebody who is very outgoing, doing that administrative type stuff is very time consuming and it's drains a lot of their energy. So it's a good, thing to have those separated in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about, thanks to Laura Tchaikovsky. She used to be our community manager at Couchbase years ago, and she really made me realize completely different jobs.
Completely
and
different.
She's great at what she does.
Yeah. Yeah, completely different. Big mistake that I think a lot of companies make is kind of treat that as one and expect the same results. Now, interesting.
And they give that to a junior person, which is say, well, hey, we're a small startup, we don't have enough money. Just hire a junior and let them do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other lie that you said, or one of the other lies, was that DevRel is a decoy. It's not, it's kind of the fake it till you make it. We're going to pretend to be a developer first company. And make it look good from a developer perspective. But I think that if a company's product lines and everything isn't aligned to that developer outcome, that's something that is it's not going to work as well. I mean, I think the whole company needs to be aligned towards that developer mindset. And I think that's often overlooked as well. You can't just bolt on and say, go make us popular with developers.
So actually, that's a great point. Sales kickoff in February, Couchbase sales kickoff. first people to talk to SEs and open the conference after our VP of engineering was the DevRel and community team. Like we were the first to do a proper talk, not just introduction, just this is how a developer is important, which of course started with Steve Ballmer screaming developer, developer, developer to our field team, because that's how aligned the company is towards getting developers. So it is primordial. We are lucky enough to be really supported by the exec team at Couchbase, so it's a pretty good position to be in. They actually funded part of the DevRel program because as an SE that have been hired with a specific set of skills, which is mostly targeted towards architects and DBAs and ops, they realized that the more they were doing sales activities, the more they required developer knowledge. And so they realized that they needed to shift toward a more developer-friendly culture than used to be. Partly because of product shifted there, partly because that's what you do now when you sell a database. You don't have to talk too much about us because it's been abstracted. Now you have to talk about the value. You have to talk about the superpowers that you give to developer with your database. That's Adam Duvander's metaphor. Don't talk about the flower, just talk about throwing fireball. That's what people want to hear. And so our SEs were really used to talk about the flower. Look at a product, it's amazing. Now they need to talk about the rad stuff that you can do with that product. And so that's partly why the DevRel renewal Couchbase has been actually asked and funded by the sales team.
Cool.
100% alignment.
Well, that's good. I mean, like if they see the value in it, because it's not always the case. And I think that especially in the open source community, sometimes that kind of like sales focus makes some people in that space feel a little weird, right? I often pull out my hat when I talk anything sales related or marketing related, the evil supervillain hat, because but it's needed. It really is.
I've been interviewing for a couple of roles. I'm still hiring, by the way. I'm still hiring someone in the TMEA region, Turkey, Middle East, Africa, and Israel, based in Tel Aviv, if you're looking for a job. And during those interviews, every time I met someone new, I started by the red flags, which were we report to marketing, and we get to work with sales quite a lot. And that's fine. I think that's fine. And I think it's not something for you. I think you wouldn't be a good fit in that team. Probably other team, the TA team that don't talk to sales, but we as field people, we work with sales. We try to enable sales to be more developer friendly. That's super important.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you're at conferences, you might be manning the booth. You might be working with, folks on, trying to figure out, new ways to, present the technology in a way that is packageable and interesting to people who are looking for a solution. So, I mean, there's a lot there, and there's a lot of crossover. I actually do a presentation where I have a slide where I have like classic DevRel, expectations versus like the sales and marketing, and they don't align, right? Because you think about like a pure community play, and it's like, I'm getting developers in the door, where sales is like, how does that translate into actual sales? And you need to connect those two dots. Otherwise,
they should align. Yeah. We have the Couchbase values. One of them is trusted advisor, and it's one of the things that was very interesting to me when I came back talking to the SE team. The trusted advisor thing is that, if the SE team, the sales team, the people that are incentivized to selling more, they've been told, if it's not a good match, leave it be. It's fine. The market's big enough. Just go and talk to someone else. And it's a DevRel practice to do that. And so, I mean, there's no reason why SEs couldn't DevRel. No reason at all. We shouldn't be doing DevRel gatekeeping and say this is just a DevRel thing. It shouldn't be. And that's also why I'm saying that maybe some of those job or terms will disappear once everybody's developer friendly and understand how developer works. And there's no reason why it should just be us. And really, really, really working with the SE team to make them more developer friendly.
So, out of curiosity, do you think that part of the reason why that DevRel team specifically has arisen is classically 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, from a sales perspective, the teams there needed to be more focused on those higher level people. So it wasn't a technical discussion. Now we're reaching a point where you're selling or discussing things, and you almost need a technical sale where it's like you need to understand the technology and understand how it works in order to be more effective at it. And until we get to a point where we have a generation of people who are interested in doing sales but have that technical understanding and ability, that we're going to have kind of that partnership between the two.
I think there's a skill part and the mindset part. I think the skill part is still very much needed, and of course, if you're talking to a developer, you have to have the skills, and because they'll see that you don't have them, so they will go and talk to someone that has them, or go and ask ChatGPT maybe in the future. We'll see.
Code me this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of boilerplate stuff that can be automated. That's another discussion. So I think the skill part is like this is like you have to have the skills. If this is also why DevRel are used in some cases, but this skill gap is being matched by the SE team as they're hiring more developer-minded people. And the reason they can do that is because we are not about self-hosting Couchbase and self-managing Couchbase anymore. We are selling a managed service. And so the discussion is shifting technically towards the people that build the stuff with it. And that was a mistake. Like we missed that, and Mongo didn't. You need to talk to both at the time. And now we only need to talk to the people that build stuff. And I think it outlines sort of the mistake that we've made by mostly focusing on the people that were hosting the thing and managing the thing. Part of the reason is we had a very different market than Mongo or many other database. We are specialized in critical use cases for scalability and performance. So basically, if Couchbase goes down, your ability to make money goes down. So people they're happy to pay a support contract. And that's where we come from. That's the market that we had. And because of that, most of our efforts in pre-sale and post-sales was making sure that the stuff doesn't go down, because that was primordial. Because that was completely linked to how people made money. Now, selling a managed service, a database as a service, well, it's not the case anymore, because that's our problem. Like we are the one that woke up at night if something goes wrong. It's not your team anymore. So we focus on the value that's after that, and that's how do you what superpower do you give to people? And so we give key value SQL and JSON and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's making it easier for those developers, right? It's the easy button. It's how to get them more productive quicker.
That's what we always want to do, and that's what we've been trying to do, and that's also the story of transformation and digital transformation. It's always, look, you've been internalizing this for so long, and now someone does it better for you on the market for so cheap that it doesn't make sense anymore. So you just use that, and then you go the layer above, and above, and above, and above.
All right, Laurent, do you know what time it is?
I have no idea.
It's time for me to ask you my metrics question.
I thought you were going to ask me that earlier. I don't remember why, but I thought this was coming.
So
you said showing value. I think that was the thing.
Yes.
How do we show value?
How do we show? So from a DevRel perspective, a community perspective, one of the things that I have seen is, everybody's like, yes, we want developers. But then when the business doesn't necessarily grow at the rate, they're like, well, how do we know that developers like this focus, the DevRel teams, are actually producing value? So I'm curious, first and foremost, what sort of measurements are you tracking? What are you looking at on a regular basis?
God. I hate metrics so much. Like, I think it doesn't make any sense. I think the reason why there's a metric conference at each DevRel conference is because it doesn't make any sense. That's why we are talking about this every single year, every time we are just, how do we do it? And it's just, the thing is, as a culture, as an agent for change, your role is to make every other metrics better, every other team's metric better, because your role is to help every other team. That's why I help the field marketing team. That's what be more developer friendly. That's why I help the field engineering team. That's what we do. We make other people better by being more friendly with developers. That's our role, is to make other team better at talking to developers and at building those developer relations. So what metrics do you have? Well, you have the same metrics than everybody else. So you sort of have the CEO metrics, which is weird, and which is, of course, now it's been implemented at Couchbase because that wouldn't make any sense to the board. So we do have to come up with our own metrics. So what is it? Good question. So that was just my personal opinion. Let's move that aside. We do, I guess, what most people do. We look at the growth of our community, and so we have several metrics. We use a wonderful platform called Common Room for that. Common Room, it's like a community CRM sort of, but that's much more intelligent than that. It allows us to have all the information we centralized about all our different presence on the internet or others, because you can embed your own metrics as well. So, Stack Overflow, Discord, our forums on Discourse, all those places. So we look at the growth of active users because that's important. That's mostly community metrics. But again, if it's your metric, who's to say that it's your doing or the global marketing team's doing? And that's why I think, those metrics are really hard to do and hard to get right. You can really know, because again, your role is to make everybody else's metric better. If the whole company is aligned to be more developer friendly. If you're a small business inside a bigger business, then that's your metric, and that's a bit of a different story. So community-wise, we use that. On the DevRel side of things, on the evangelist side of things, anything that's powered by Couchbase is important to us. So we keep track on what is powered by Couchbase. It's mostly open source projects. We don't really know, what happens behind closed walls, but we track project being built and supporting Couchbase. If there's something new that supports Couchbase, that's great. We're happy. It's easier for us to use this as a metric because we are not first on the market, or we're not the default choice of people. So we have some room to grow, and we have a way to see line goes up, which might not necessarily be the case if you're Mongo or Postgres, because you're sort of the default choice. When someone builds something, usually they start by this one or the other. So we're not the default choice. We have to build this ourselves or to wait for other people to build it. So we try to keep tab on what people do with Couchbase. That's super important, and that's what we want in the end. In the end, we want people to use Couchbase to do rad shit.
Yeah. No, I mean, that user growth metric is a really important one, right? So the number of actual users of your product, where it's being deployed, I think that's a great metric for a lot of people.
But the thing is, we are not a SaaS, right? I mean, now we use database as a service, but we're also still a software vendor, and it's really hard to know. And there's a community edition, of course. There's an enterprise edition, because those bad cloud people that made all the database go somewhat not open source anymore. So we open core, just like Redis, just like Mongo, just like Elastic, just like all those databases that choose the business server license. So we don't really know everything. But we have SDKs, people use them, people do stuff with them. So that's what we're looking for.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that user growth is something that a lot of people are looking for. I talk to a lot of venture capitalists as well. So for startups, they're saying, hey, what sort of actual users, what sort of production users are you seeing? And I think that goes a long way as well to proving the value of the team.
I think it really depends on the business, right? If you're a SaaS, for sure. Like if you're a pure SaaS player, that makes complete sense. If you're an infrastructure as a service layer, that is very sticky, and sticky choices. I like to see what people build more than the number of new users we have on the platform, or the number of cluster we have, because is it a test cluster? Is it there's many things that. I think everything's interesting. We choose to focus on what people build because as evangelists, that's where we have the most control over, somewhat.
Okay.
So that's what we're going for.
Okay. So now we have reached what I call rapid fire question time. So Laurent, this is to get to know you a little bit better. Okay. I have a random sampling of 173 questions that I'm going to ask you, and you got 10 minutes to do it.
Is it a yes or no question?
No. I to be honest, to be fair, I don't think I've ever gotten beyond 11 of the questions. So, that's okay. So I'm curious, what sort of laptop are you using right now?
Oh, so that's a ThinkPad X1 Carbon, my good old X1 Carbon. I have my old one just right there as well. I've been using X1 Carbon for the moment they existed.
Oh, awesome. What are you running? A Linux distribution on it? Are you running Windows? What are you running on?
Oh, you wish. I work in public publicly traded company, security is important. So of course, I've been told to use Windows, and I cannot have dual boot, so I have Windows.
Okay. And so, do you have, what was the first Linux distribution you've ever used, like in the past?
So that's a long time ago. Being French, Mandrake was a thing. Mandrake was a Red Hat fork, and it's been renamed to Mandriva afterwards. So I've been between Mandrake and at the time Corel. They had a Corel OS that worked pretty well. I was amazed. I was like 13 or 14, and oh god, the Windows sharing function works. And like we were in 1998, that was huge at the time. And then I went to Ubuntu like everybody else, and then Arch, and now I'm Endeavour, which is an opinionated Arch Linux distribution that I have on my biggest machine on the side. NixOS is amazing. I've been using a lot of NixOS on the side as well. But Arch.
Awesome. And if I was to look at the back of your laptop, what stickers are you rocking right now? What's that? What's on there?
You get the old version.
Okay, let's look at the old version.
But the new one is pretty similar, right? So we have what? This used to be Clever Cloud, my former company. This is Rust. This is GitHub, Clever Cloud. What do you have? This is Redis. This is WireGuard. WireGuard is the most amazing VPN technology you should use. This is Totoro. Love Totoro. Clever Cloud as well. Clever Cloud.
Okay.
More GitHub. This is Firefox. Like the cool Firefox Mecha.
Oh, yeah.
More Clever Cloud. And this is my brewery. Where is it? It's here. My brewery. La Marmotte Masquée.
Okay. And so at your brewery, what kind of beer do you generally brew? Is it all kinds, or is it a specific?
We change recipe all the time because if not, it's boring. And also, we are a small brewery, so we want to resell to the same people. They want to, there's beer nerds everywhere now. There's microbrewery everywhere, so you want to offer some choices. So we change recipe all the time. The most common traits that they share, it's usually very dry. We don't like sugar and we don't like alcohol, so it's pretty easy to drink. Only in 75 centiliters or 1.5 liter. Because we like to share. Okay.
And is there a weird flavor or, a weird kind of style that you tried? Like one that you're like, ooh, I thought this might be better than it was. No?
Oh, that I tried personally? Yes, sure. Because microbrewery do so many stupid things these days. It's like a race to what's the most triple dry hop or double dry hop, whatever, or cryo hop, or they said the race to the most hoppy beer, and that makes me sad. So I thought I was gonna, like it like everybody else, and then no, I cannot drink IPAs anymore because it's too much.
Okay. And so if I was going to, sit down with you after a conference talk and we were going to have a drink, what would you order? What would be the drink of choice?
So last time at Devox UK, we had local beer on the booth from the Colonel Brewery. The Colonel is a local London brewery, and it was the table beer. So it's like a session pale ale, very light. It has 3% of alcohol, very fresh, very, very drinkable.
Okay. I'm a stout person myself, so I like the dark. That's just me. I'm a dark beer.
I'm more of a porter than stout. I think so. That's interesting. I think people go through IPA and then they go there or there. This is stout and porter and dark beer, and this is farmhouse season, Cantillon and all those weird beer. And in France right now, there's a huge boom in what we call bière, which is a pun on vin and bière, so wine and beer. And so basically, it's beer that's starting to ferment over wine. So it's sort of weird mix.
I've never heard of it. We'll have to try it sometime. It sounds odd, but I'm willing to try it.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's really loved by the people that love natural wine as well. And I'm a big natural wine lover, so sort of my thing.
All right.
I get it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always like to ask this question because this is an interesting question. It dives into the psyche of everyone that I ask this. And I'm spending way too much time introducing this question. But the question is, at a conference, you're going to go up and they say, what music do you want to play as you walk up to stage? What's the song that you choose to walk to stage on to give your conference talk? It's your walk-up music. It's your introduction.
I never really thought about this, so I'm gonna tell you what happened at Couchbase Connect in 2017, I think 16. It was Daft Punk. Was in France, so Daft Punk. Around the world was their biggest first single. So that would be nice.
Yeah. And I asked that to a lot of different people, and I'm going to put together a playlist of everyone's like choices.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Very eclectic mix of different types of people and walk-up music.
It's really what I want people to listen to before I show up, and not what I listen to usually, because what I listen to usually is heavier and yeah.
What do you listen to usually?
Metal, like lot of these different variations of metal. I didn't really like the latest Metallica album, but that's not going to surprise many.
It wasn't that good.
Unfortunately, it wasn't that great. Mastodon, I like Stoner a lot. So Mastodon's quite nice. I don't know, Alter Bridge in the more popish side of things. I listen to a lot of grunge music. I listen to Alice in Chains and Soundgarden quite a lot.
Okay, old school there, yeah.
Yeah, old school grunge is great. In most recent bands, not necessarily metal, Highly Suspect is pretty good.
Oh yeah, I like them. Yeah.
Nice American band. In modern metal, I'm not a big fan of the YouTube bands like Polyphia. It's not really my thing. So yeah, a bit of Jans, Periphery. I like Periphery a lot.
Yeah, so I personally I like Five Finger Death Punch, Disturbed, So I like the metal scene as well, just maybe a little different, but always
it's
great.
Very wide.
Yeah, very wide.
So many different metal. Yeah.
All right. Well, Laurent, I want to thank you for coming on and chatting with us today. I really do appreciate it. This has been great. Hopefully, this has been great for you. And want to let everyone know to subscribe this. But Laurent, thanks a bunch.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Really enjoyed the conversation as well. So thanks for the invitation.
All right. Well, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us. And if you do have questions for either myself or Laurent, feel free to put them in the comments.
Absolutely.
Until next time, we'll see you
Cheers.
later.